So this is 8 minutes before 8 local time in London, and it's 8 17 18:52 hours GMT on Tuesday, 18th of April 2023. This is part A of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, broadcasting under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo Editions. You cannot see Baby Angel Geronimo's face. A current arrangement of the broadcast that we have with StreamYard, who have got their own logo where the Baby Angel Geronimo's face normally is. Now we start with an item, the latest item about an extraordinary event that took place last night at the St. Pancras railway station in London, with the arrest of a 28-year-old man from France under the 2000 Terrorism Act in the United Kingdom, under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act. It's extraordinary because the man has not been arrested nor charged with any terrorism act or activities. The charge that has been released by the Metropolitan Police against this man, who the London Metropolitan Police confirm is in custody today, 18th of April 2023. The charge refers, let's go to the actual item that we have witnessed, access on the Guardian website. And the Guardian website has got quite a detailed piece about this. The heading is UK News, French publisher arrested in London on terrorism charges. And they don't put any quotation marks around the words terrorism charge. And it's byline to Matthew Weber. And the local time 17:12, which would be 16:12 hours. So it's up to date up to that time. And they mentioned several sources, including the National Union of Journalists, the magazine branch of the National Union of Journalists, as having expressed concern, deep concern at the arrest. Now, let's go back to the item, the aspect of the item that refers to his being charged. The charge is as This is the quotation on the Guardian website in the piece byline to Methuiba. Quote, on Tuesday, 18th of April, the man was subsequently arrested on suspicion of willfully obstructing a Schedule 7 examination, contrary to Section 18 of the Terrorism Act 2000. The man remains in custody. And the last two words within quotation is inquiries continue. That is the last part of the item by Matthew Weber on the Guardian website. Now, this is interesting because I haven't come across any news item where anyone who is not, either by their own admission or description of themselves, engaged in terrorism acts or has been known to have been a terrorist in the ordinary sense of the word terror or terrorism. And it seems that this is a very fast time any such arrest has been made of somebody who is a publisher. The publisher, a critical publisher, publishing criticism or critical items about France or about the UK cannot be treated as terrorism. Okay, so the Writers Association, PEN International, said it was deeply concerned that Moret, well, it could be the pronunciation, I'm doing the pronunciation as literally read in the spelling Moret. The French sound may be that it is not similar to the English sound. So it may be just Moret was being detained on counter-terrorism grounds. Pamela Morton, senior books and magazines organizer for the National Union of Journalists, also expressed concern. She said it seemed extraordinary that the British police have acted this way in arresting a publisher on the way to the London Book Fair. We will be taking this up with the police. A Metropolitan Police spokesperson said at around 7:30 p.m. on Monday, 17th of April, a 28-year-old man was stopped by ports officers as he arrived at St. Pancras station, using powers under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act 2000. And then it goes on to say what I've already quoted. On Tuesday, 18th of April, which is today, the man was subsequently arrested on suspicion of willfully obstructing a Schedule 7 examination, contrary to Section 18 of the Terrorism Act 2000. Now let's check on the links. One of the linked organizations connected with which this man has come to the UK with more than 30 scheduled appointments during the book fair. And one of the organizations that I want to check is an outfit publisher called Verso. And I shall make that clear very soon why I am looking for it. It says the Verso Books is the largest independent radical publishing house in the English-speaking world. And its distribution is by Penguin Random House in the US, Marston Book Services in the UK, and Bloomsbury Publishing in Australia. And the parent company of the Verso books is New Left Review, and publication type is books. Now, the reason I am looking for details about the Verso books is that they have already mentioned Verso books in the piece on The Guardian about the arrest of this Frenchman. But the real reason I'm looking for it is because of the connection that Tariq Ali from Pakistan has with Verso books. And the fact that it is patronized by the Random House and Penguin Random House and Marston Book Service and Bloomsbury Publishing in Australia exposes Tariq Ali's radicalism as being essentially a Western sponsored sham radicalism. Tariq Ali is not somebody that has played any part in real opposition to imperialist ideas and ideologies. And since he has been hosted, given very generous accommodation by the British establishment from the 1960s onwards. And it is absolutely remarkable that Tariq Ali is not known for really upholding the rights of the people in the subcontinent. In fact, his main role has been a sponsored agitator against the idea of an Islamic state called Pakistan. We shall talk more about the imperialist agenda against an Islamic state, whatever the details, but the Islamic State as an idea, nothing to do with the Islamic State of the terrorist description of the last decade or so, but it's based on the arguments that took place in the 1940s, leading to the establishment in August 1947 of the two states. One is India and the other is Pakistan. And Tariq Ali has been given platforms against the Islamic aspect of Pakistan in a most disproportionate way, that he hasn't been given any platforms to focus in any similar way on the dangers to democracy, human rights, etc., represented by the Hindutva ideology in the various forms over the last 76 years, starting from Nehru and continuing through Nehru's daughter Indira Nehru, and being continued in an aggravated form under the RSS alliance called the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, fronted by Narendra Modi and his fascist Hindutva agitator Amit Shah. So this item on The Guardian about this Frenchman's arrest, let's check the sound of this man's name. Let's check the sound of the French name. See how the French name is pronounced in French. I have to check it. I cannot say I automatically know the pronunciation. Ernest Moret. That is how I would say in English. And then if I make a concession to the French, contextually, then it would be Ernest or Ernest, whatever the way they pronounce Ernest, Moret. So let's check with the help of the device in available on the internet. Let's check how they pronounce it. So this is, according to Google Translate, this name, Ernest Moret or Moret, is identified as a Norwegian. Now let's check the sound.
Ernest Moret. Ernest Moret.
So they are pronouncing the Ernest almost similar to the Ernest as it is pronounced in English. But the Moret is
Ernest Moret.
so the Ernest is pronounced in the usual way as in English. But let's hear again the Moret.
Ernest Moret.
Mora. So it sounds like almost the sound of an H at the end. And instead of the sound of the E, in that pronunciation, it sounds like being produced by AH. More.
Ernest Moret.
More. So let's leave it there, the name, and check if he's available as an entry on Wikipedia. Just to make sure that so he's being well, this is a name. It may be somebody else with the same name. And it says this person is a composer. That is how he's. So that Ernest Morat was born on 19th of May 1871 and died in 1949. So it's not the same one. And this Ernest Morat or Morat doesn't seem to have yet an wiki entry to himself. So we go to the ordinary news outlets and see how he is being treated. There may be more description about him on the ordinary news outlets. Google hasn't got any entry in the news. So there is an item 51 minutes ago, following The Guardian, which was 5 hours ago. On the Evening Standard, London Evenings, No Standard website. Met, that is Metropolitan Police, criticized for using anti-terror laws to arrest French publisher on way to London Book Fair. And it says protests held after Ernest Mora apparently told alleged involvement in demonstrations against Emmanuel Macron's pension age reform was behind detention in St. Pancras. Now, this is a picture of St. Pancras station. No, it's not a picture of St. Pancras, it's a picture of the London Book Fair in Kensington, Olympia, on the Evening Standard. And it says a leading French publisher has been bailed after anti terror laws were used to arrest him as he arrived in London. So he has been bailed. I mean, that is the update on the Evening Standard. Ernest Mora, French foreign rights manager with French publisher Editions La Fabrique, now was stopped by officers in St. Pancras on Monday. And he had been on his way to the London Book Fair at Kensington Olympia, which is scheduled to include an address by the Ukrainian president's wife, Olena Zelenska. Are they going to arrest her, Olena, as well? According to a joint statement released by his publisher, and there you've got the Warsaw Books, and left-wing book publisher Warsaw Books, Mr. Mora was stopped by police under counter-terror laws on Monday at St. Pancras to determine whether he was engaged in terrorist acts or in possession of material for use in terrorism. Now, this is an extraordinary kind of shopping list. I mean, what on earth would he be in possession of? His employer claimed he was stopped over his alleged involvement in French pension age protests. They also alleged that he was then arrested after refusing to give up passcodes to his phone. I mean, whatever next? Officers said they were stopping him under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act 2000. This gives the police wide powers to search people at border crossings to check if they are involved in terrorism. And then they quote the Metropolitan Police statement. Quote, At around 1930 hours on Monday, 17th of April, a 28-year-old man was stopped by Ports officers as he arrived at St. Pancras station using powers under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act 2000. On Tuesday, 18th of April, the man was subsequently arrested on suspicion of willfully obstructing a Schedule 7 examination contrary to Section 18 of the Terrorism Act 2000. Enquiries continue. A protest was called outside the French Institute in Queensberry Place, South Kensington at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. So this is now 1 hour and 17 minutes since 7 o'clock. So we'll probably have items about the protest demonstration later. A simultaneous demonstration has also been called outside the British Embassy in Paris. In a joint statement, Editions La Fabrique and Vogue said the police officers claimed that Ernest had participated in demonstrations in France as a justification for this act. A quite remarkably inappropriate statement for a British police officer to make, and which seems to clearly indicate complicity between French and British authorities on this matter. When did it begin? A political demonstration takes place in France, and the participant in that demonstration is then arrested. In Britain, under what authority? Anyway, there is a question, there is continuation of this statement from Editions La Fabrique and Warsaw Books. It was demanded that he give up his phone and passcodes to the officers, with no justification or explanation offered. This morning, Ernest was formally arrested and transferred to a police station, accused of obstruction because of his refusal to give up his passcodes. Now, Editions Fabrique and La Fabrique and Warsaw Books called upon the French ambassador to Britain, Helen Dashin, to request Ernest's immediate release. PEN. Now, PEN stands for Poets, Essayists, and Novelists. International Freedom of Expression Campaigning Group said it was deeply concerned by the detention of French publisher La Fabrique's foreign rights manager, held since yesterday on counter-terrorism grounds. The London Book Fair told the Standard, that is the evening, no standard. As this is an ongoing police investigation, the London Book Fair cannot comment at this time. Fuck the London Book Fair, morons. Shit! The French embassy in London did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Of course they wouldn't. I mean, they were aware, to say the least, that Ernest would be arrested and hassled when he came to Britain. Now, this is Macron behaving in a most bizarre, stupid, idiotic way. He should not have done that. And this Ernest Morat would never have been even stopped, let alone arrested, let alone charged, without direct request by Emmanuel Macron, the moron. The 3-day major publishing festival at Kensington Olympia from Tuesday is set to welcome around 25,000 people from the industry and related fields. So the I News had about 9 hours ago, that was about the same kind of time as the Guardian got together, because that was before the iNews paywall, so you can't get into the actual text of the iNews item. Now, about an hour ago, the BBC has got this piece headed Met Police use of anti-terror laws to arrest French publisher condemned. So this is what they said an hour ago, the BBC website. Two publishers and the National Union of Journalists have condemned the police after anti-terror laws were used to arrest a French publisher as he arrived in London. Ernest Moret was charged under counter-terrorism legislation after traveling from Paris on Monday. His employer claimed he was stopped over his alleged involvement in French pension age protests. Now, this term, this word has to be watched very carefully. Since one has taken taking part in protests become a crime? Sebastian Bajan, senior editorial director at Varsa Books and a friend of Mr. Moret, told the BBC, quote, "It's an extremely frightening kind of event. When somebody who is just conducting their professional activity, coming to a book fair in London, can be treated in this kind of way, as if they are public enemy number one." Editions La Fabrique is a left publisher. We have had months now of massive protests in France. And I think from their perspective, anybody who is a dissident or alleged with a dissident or aligned with a dissident publisher is potentially some kind of criminal. Ernest is a 28-year-old foreign rights manager. He doesn't have any particular power or influence. I think they just decided he's someone good to pick on to see if they can get any intelligence. Pamela Morton, senior books and magazine organizer at the National Union of Journalists, said it seems extraordinary that British police use terror legislation to arrest a publisher who was on legitimate business here. An open letter signed by French publishers and authors in news magazine La Obs called on British authorities to immediately release Mr. More. We also urged the French authorities to intervene to guarantee the protection of their nationals against such repressive measures, it added. The French embassy in London has been approached for comment. And what would they possibly have to say? Approached for comment. I mean, that shows that the French embassy is not going to make any comment. Of course not. Because the arrest of this man was part of the French government policy. Fuck them. I mean, this actually shows what the counterpart, the British basic protesters against the repressive legislation being put through the House of Parliament by Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman, making it harder for people to protest, making it harder or even a criminal offense to publish some of the information that is in public interest, but the government wants to conceal and hide. So far, there has been no evidence about this arrest of this Frenchman being condemned by the official British opposition. We shall keep an eye on this to see what they say, if they say anything. This is a historic move towards fascism. The fascist collaboration with the French is okay. So there is a piece about the Tariq Ali's alleged book, Churchill and His Crimes, the Indian Cold Roll, and it is published in the Sri Lanka Guardian on the 3rd of October 2022. It's a kind of report. So, I mean, Tariq Ali is totally not going to get any forgiveness for being the main Muslim named contributor to the myths, anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim myths of decades, operated by his handlers, his cultural handlers in the UK. No matter what he has belatedly kind of pretended to write, which is the Islam Quintet, a wonderful reminder of Islam's contribution to world culture. It's not at all true to say that Tariq Ali actually believes in Islam's contribution to world culture at all. Tariq Ali is a congenital hater of Islam and Muslims, and he has been lying for decades, and he has been complicit in the production, promotion, perpetration of the Hindutva ideology, which has been benefiting from Tariq Ali's attacks on Muslims. There is no evidence anywhere in the whole planet that ordinary Muslims have violated the universal rights of humanity in any place, any part of the continent, any of the continents. But there is overwhelming evidence and continues to be increasing evidence that Muslims are being daily persecuted, violated, denied, raped, murdered, tortured for no other reason other than the fact that they're Muslims. Millions of Muslims in the world are reduced to exist in poverty and hunger and starvation, a lot of which is caused by discrimination based on the policy of attacking Muslims, denying Muslims basic human rights. So, this is the introduction to this degeneration of the pathetic state of democracy that is being degenerated even further by the two, Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman. Appropriate updates will be contained in our later editions and in our comments on these social media platforms, especially the platform that we run on Twitter and Facebook and WordPress. Now, let's check what other information we can find. Let's check if the Murdoch Times has got. There is a rare piece of news about the mother of a person that was mauled to death by a bear. Because she is pleading for the bear to be spared death. Whether he will be spared death is not certain at all, because the treatment of animals, as typified by the murder of the seagull in England, shows that human beings remain when they have got the power, if you like, most human beings behave as what they call barbarians. And there is a picture of congenital liar Boris Johnson posing with a man called Chinese businessman who hosted a secret police station. So it seems that the actual terror in the behavior of the British state is actually going on under the bogus facade that the Rishi Sunak fronted United Kingdom regime is both concerned at the Chinese repressive espionage and other violations. So, this is the truth. And the Times has got a piece next to it on the website against the climate change protesters expected on Friday. And the main core of their item is that the protest will disrupt London Marathon. Think about that. What's the point of a marathon if it is shown as being conducted by allowing the suppression and demonization of the protectors of the environment? What's the point of the marathon? And Johnson posing for the photograph with this Chinese secret policeman reminds of Johnson's many pictures posing with shady individuals. How does Johnson come across in the picture that he posed for with Jennifer Arcuri? Look at this criminality on the part of the Sri Lankans. The Sri Lankans obviously are behaving as sadists. They've sent 100,000 monkeys to China as debt repayment. One of the other items about China is that the Chinese government has frozen pensions of people from Hong Kong with British passports. Rishi Sunak's wife, Rishi Sunak's wife's stake in the business, a childcare business, is not mentioned in as many as six ministerial registers. That's a revelation, according to The Guardian. And let's check what the actual copy reads. It's a Peter Walker, political correspondent. And it's an exclusive item, apparently, by The Guardian. Number 10, arts to explain as lists of interests since 2019 do not refer to Akshata Marti's shares. Well, Akshata Marti is a Sanskrit word, Okkata. Okkata means untainted, unhurt, uninjured, intact, in fact. Opposition parties have called on Downing Street to provide answers over Rishi Sunak's family financial interests. As The Guardian discovered that previous ministerial registers made no mention of Sunak's wife's stake in a childcare firm, even though it began in 2019, which is 4 years ago. The Prime Minister could be ordered to apologize to the House of Commons if an inquiry announced on Monday into his declarations about the investment finds he breached the code of conduct for members of parliament. Companies House records show Okkata Marti or Murti is how I pronounce it anyway, first took a stake in Koru Kids, one of six childcare companies that stand to benefit from a policy announcement in last month's budget. In March 2019, when she held 20,000 shares in the firm. Well, the register of ministerial interests has not been updated for nearly a year following the resignation of Boris Johnson's advisor on interests. The six registers published since March 2019, when Murthy took the stake, have no mention of it. The first of these does not refer to Murthy at all, while the five subsequent versions, the last of which was published in May 2022, says only that Sunak's wife owns a venture capitalist investment company The records for Koru Kids show not that of the investment company. The most recent records show Sunak's wife still has 20,000 shares. Downing Street has said it cannot comment while the inquiry is underway, beyond reiterating that the shareholding had been transparently declared as a ministerial interest. Unlike the parallel register of MPs' interests, not every interest declared by ministers to the relevant civil service head of their department is publicly listed, as it is up to the advisor on ministers' interests, who is now Lori Magnus, to decide whether this is necessary. Well, this is completely necessary, and the political advisors say must be removed, making the disclosure mandatory. So the Guardian continues, it is therefore possible that Sunak declared the shareholding in Koru Kids, but that Mangus's predecessor, Christopher Gate, the Mangus's predecessors, Christopher Gate and Alex Allen, who between them held the role until June last year, thought it did not need to be published. Now, how the fuck? It cannot be based on the whims and opportunism. Angela Rayner, Labour's deputy leader, said Rishi Sunak should have declared his financial interests as a minister, chancellor, and prime minister, as is required by his own ministerial code. But with no list of interests for nearly a year, his failure to come clean on what he declared gives the impression he's got something to hide. He could clear it up by simply saying when and how he has declared these potential conflicts of interest and whether steps have been taken to manage them in line with the code. Daisy Cooper, the Liberal Democrat deputy leader, called for the rules to be changed and for Sunak to provide clarity. Rishi Sunak needs to come before Parliament and explain why this wasn't featured in the previous registers of ministerial interest, she said. It is absurd that the rules mean that government ministers can currently get away with publicly declaring less than a backbench MP. We need a total overhaul of the system to ensure that the ministerial register of interests is regularly published and has more rigorous standards. The public has a right to know. So the Guardian continues. One difficulty for Sunak is that as part of his inquiry, the Standards Commissioner, Daniel Greenberg, is expected to look into whether the Prime Minister should have declared the interest when questioned by a committee of MPs last month, where the rules are stricter than for registering interests. Appearing before the Liaison Committee on 28th of March, Sunak was asked by the Labour MP Catherine McKinnell about a proposed pilot scheme to incentivize people to become child minders, with Koru Kids among 6 private child care providers involved. When McKinnell asked Sunak whether he had anything to declare in relation to the scheme, he replied, "No, all my disclosures are declared in the normal way." The MP's Code of Conduct states that not only must members be open and frank in declaring interests, but mentioning a declaration without explaining what it is will not suffice on its own. If Greenberg finds Sunak should have should have been more open with the liaison committee. There is the option of rectification, where he admits fault and amends the record. However, if the Prime Minister refuses this, or if Greenberg decides he has not been properly transparent, Sunak's case could be referred to the Standards Committee, made up of MPs and lay members for punishment. A suspension from Commons seems very unlikely. Of 66 members of parliament suspended since 1949, only one had this happen because of a non declaration of interest. The Conservative MP John Brown in 1990. But it is possible Sunak could be ordered to apologize. That's the end of that particular item. So we go back to the issues of other activities and events that we have been talking about in previous editions. Especially the 17-year-old boy, Shia Gordon, who was murdered in Tower Hamlets. This boy is from Enfield in North London. Okay, so let's check what the Tower Hamlets Council's website is saying about Shia Gordon. Well, it says your search for Shia Gordon returned zero results. Now, this is what the boy was murdered in September 2022. So, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Now, 8 calendar months ago. And Tower Hamlets Council has not entered any position, including any recognition on the part of the council of the life of this boy. And we add this update as continuing evidence of the Tower Hamlets Council's willful, negligent refusal to discharge the legal duty it has to safeguard children. So we shall be bringing an end to this particular edition at 1 hour and 9 minutes, let's say. We shall be continuing with the items that remain outstanding in later editions. So finishing it at 20 hours GMT.